you a question, and the rest of you guys, please turn on your cameras. I'm not using a PowerPoint specifically so I can see your beautiful faces and make a connection. That's really important. Kayla, let me ask you, what are you looking to get out of this?
Okay.
Thanks, Tom. What are you looking to get out of this, Kayla? Just like one or two things.
Okay.
Recruiting skills
Recruiting skills.
to help develop the department
Great.
and skill development for sure.
Skill. Okay. All right. Excellent. Hey, Tom, would you also give me an idea what you're looking to get out of this time you're going to spend here?
Okay.
Yeah, so we redesigned our sales team last year, about a year ago, and
Yeah.
we did it just trial by fire. So if we can kind of get an outline on how to structure it, that'd be great.
Okay.
Right. Okay. All right. Well, that sounds good.
Good, Dell. Sounds good.
Yeah.
Yeah. All right. All right. All right.
I wish
Jeannie.
I had the option to mute people,
Yeah.
but I can't. I
All
tried.
right. Yep. Okay. Well, just keep me in the loop then.
Dell,
All right. It's fine. I'll talk to you later. Love you too.
Oh,
Bye.
thanks, Dell. I'm doing good already. Look at that. I love you already.
Huh.
I don't know if that was for me though.
Dell, we could hear your conversation, just so you're aware.
Oh, wonderful.
I thought you were sending the love out to me, the presenter, but I don't think that's right, though, actually, is it?
This is my third or fourth call this morning. I tell you, I am the master of overbooking myself.
All right. Well, you're getting a lot done. Hey, listen, while I've got you, Dell, what are a couple things you're looking to get out of this? I'm just kind of asking for a few opinions here. What are you looking to get out of this time?
So we're a family business based in Houston. We've got two full-time commercial salespeople. We do a lot of residential sales, but really I'm looking for ways to help organize our salespeople, whether that be on a dashboard or something like that. Motivation is not an issue. They're really great people. You know, that's one positive we've got going here, but just ways to help organize those guys. And then obviously through that, we become more efficient and they become more successful.
Okay. All right, cool. All right. Thank you very much, Dell. Debbie, can I ask you, what are you looking to get out of this session today?
Hi.
Hi.
Well, yeah, still good morning. I am trying to be able to give the team some more direction and some more coaching. I do internal ops for Ransford Pest Control, and we don't have a sales manager right now, so I'm kind of filling that spot while we're looking. So I'm just want to be more helpful to them and coach them and guide them, along the process.
So sales management process?
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah, the funnels and following up and how often they should follow up and just making sure we're getting the most out of the leads that we're spending up
Okay.
attention on.
All right. Thank you very much, Kaylee, Tom, Dell, Debbie, appreciate it. Here's what we're going to do. I am going to, hopefully all of you have the worksheet, because that's the outline. Now, I took the time to put that together. I know there's a lot of information on there, but here's my goal. At the end of this call, a couple of things are going to happen. I'm going to go through that list. I'm going to share with you the foundational elements. That's what Adam and I discussed. Let's talk about the foundational elements of sales management, of a consultative sales process, some of the challenges. And I'm going to go through that. And then at the end, we're going to have an open conversation where you guys are going to ask any questions that you have. This call is also being recorded. So my vision is, with that document I've created, with the ability to ask questions, and the recording, you should be able to get some very actionable items. Okay. We have 90 minutes. I don't know that we'll use it all. That's going to depend largely on the volume of questions you guys have. All right. Any concerns with what I just said? No, we're good. Okay. And the rest of you guys,
Wait, Duane, Tom.
Yeah,
Hey, Duane, you mentioned that worksheet. I don't see the worksheet. Did
So-
you email it to us?
Yeah, it did come from any PMA, but if anyone doesn't have the worksheet, Tom, I have your email address. But if you can drop your email address in the chat, I'll forward it over to you so you have it.
Tom,
Okay,
I'll
thanks.
just print one for you. Give me 1 second.
Okay, thanks.
thanks for letting us know, Tom. That's important. Okay, rest of you. All right, Alan and Brett and David, if you guys could turn on your cameras, that'd be great. If you really don't want to for whatever reason, that's cool. But I'd just like to be able to see everybody so that, we can communicate with one another.
Yeah, I only
All
put
right.
my camera off because I was driving to a meeting. I am parked. But I'm parked. But I'm parked.
Don't get in a car accident, Brett. I don't want to be responsible for that. Don't get in a
No.
car accident. All right, nice to see you.
I'll send the bill, but I'm muting myself and putting the camera off, but I'm sitting in the parked in the
All
car.
right.
Send the
All
bill
right.
to Adam.
Thank you. No worries. All right. So this presentation is all about growth. The things I'm going to share with you are observations that I have made in pest control while working in this industry with my clients for the last 8 years. I've got over 36 years in selling and sales management. I've worked in a number of Fortune 500 companies, Sprint being one of them as a director. And I learned a great deal about process and a great deal about consultative selling, because in these Fortune 500 companies, they give you quite a bit of training. So that is one of the things I've taken away from that experience. I'm passionate about small business. I do have some large companies. I mean, Sensky out in Washington is one of my clients, and they're pretty big. But I'm very passionate about small companies, and the sales process we're going to talk about can really have a massive positive impact on your company. So this is about growth. Now, what I want to do is please write your questions down, because I'm not going to take questions when I'm presenting. I want to stay focused. I want to get through that, and I want to allow a lot of time for questions, because that's where the rubber is going to hit the road with you guys. Okay? All right. The first thing I want to share with you is the 6 things we're going to cover. And this is on your sheet. Number 1, sales management process. Number 2, we're going to look at the consultative selling process. What does that consist of? What is the definition? Why is that so powerful today? We're going to talk about skill development. What specific skills does a sales rep need today to help you stand out in the market? And that's really important, that you stand out in the market. And we'll talk a little bit about that. I know that you know that that's true. We're going to talk about recruiting and onboarding. That's super important, that when we find somebody that's top talent, that we onboard them in a way where they're engaged and they start out on the right foot. I'm going to talk a little bit about the challenges you can expect, because this is going to involve change. We're going to ask these reps to behave in a different way. We're going to begin monitoring their performance in a way, perhaps, that you haven't. Many of you might already have some of these processes, and that's great. So if for you, this will be a refresher. For you, this will be confirmation that what you're doing is best practices. Because again, I am taking a lot of this from what I have observed over the last 8 years with top performing companies. I literally have been listening and scoring roughly 7 sales calls a week. Run that over 8 years, that's over 3,000 calls. That's a lot of calls. I've heard it all, and I've seen it all when it comes to the sales management process. So you're going to benefit from me being a conduit. I'm going to bring that to you, and then we'll talk, very briefly about some results. All right, let's go into the sales management process. Here's the first thing that I think is important. It's very common in smaller pest control companies, as you're growing, 1.6 million, 2 million, 2.5, right around that area, to have a hybrid role. And what I mean by that is where you have a customer service representative that is also selling. And when you're growing, that makes a lot of sense, because financially, you really can't afford to separate those 2 roles at that point in time. So it makes sense. But I'm going to suggest that you set a goal to increase your revenues to the point where you can in fact separate them. Because the reality is, customer service and sales, they require different skill sets. Let me give you an example. Salespeople are trained to ask probing questions in the discovery phase. How long have you been having this problem? Where are you seeing, where are the sightings happening? Do you currently have a pest control company? Do you have children? Do you have pets? What have you done to try to prevent this or make these pests go away? And of course, we don't ask all those questions in a row because that's an interrogation. But when we're engaging in a conversation with a buyer, these are the kinds of questions and the type of information that makes a very solid connection. Customer service people, on the other hand, they're focused on helping people, on handling inquiries, perhaps billing inquiries, resolving issues, providing ongoing support. Where sales reps are also responsible to overcome objections. Your price is high. I need to think it over. I'm going to get a couple more estimates. I need to talk it over with my spouse. Customer service people are not really prepared or trained or comfortable in having those conversations about objections. The sales representatives are responsible to close. And when a rep is properly trained, they may ask for the order up to 2 to 3 times in a very conversational way, by the way. I'll talk a little bit about that. Customer service people aren't comfortable with that. That's not what they do. When you try to combine the two, the customer service rep that's trying to help someone solve a problem, and now they're trying to sell a product, it can come across as pushy. It can come across as insincere, and it could actually damage the relationship. And lastly on that, it becomes a challenge to measure them. The metrics are extremely important. We're going to talk about that. It's difficult to set clear performance goals that are for a customer service and a sales rep. When one is a hybrid, they're very, very different. So I would highly suggest that you set a goal over time to separate those two roles because they're very, very different. All right, now here's something which might sound rather odd to you, but it's very important for you to understand. We cannot manage sales. Sales is a lagging metric. When November sales are completed, there's nothing you can do about it. But what we can manage are all of the activities, the leading activities that go into accomplishing sales. That's what we want to focus on. Now, some of them are things such as what's the annual sales goal? Well, in commercial, that's fairly straightforward. We set an annual sales goal. They're responsible, they're hunters typically, responsible to make initial connection, responsible to generate appointments, deliver estimates or proposals, and then follow up. In the commercial sale, probably 100% of the sales are going to be made in the follow-up process. So it's critical that that follow-up process be full of value and making multiple contacts over a period of time to assess where do we stand, what can I do next. When we're talking about inside sales, we're spending a lot of money on marketing, pay-per-click, SEO on our website, wrapping vehicles, yard signs. We're driving inbound traffic. And again, we want to set a sales goal because even inside's responsible to make outbound calls, right? Even inside is responsible to follow up on unsold estimates. You have seasonal cross-selling you want to go on. Maybe you want them to call existing customers to sell termite, perhaps wildlife or rodent. A lot of your customers may not be fully aware of all the services you provide. So even the inside is making outbound. And you want to, obviously with a rep, we want an ROI. I mean, they've got to pay for their salary, right? And then we've got to get profit on top of that. So even with an inside rep, take a look at what you need that person to generate in revenue every year. Figure out what you can afford to pay them, and then figure out what the average perhaps conversion ratio is. You know, an estimate delivered to a sale made, and using those numbers, reverse engineer it, and you can come up with an annual sales goal, even for salespeople inside, where you're spending a lot of money on marketing and they're driving inbound calls. So that's super important. The next thing, of course, is the number of proposals that are created or estimates, whatever term you like. Because we know they're going to drive sales. How many are being generated? And they should have some KPIs. They should have some numbers, both inside and outside. What about closing? What is each representative's conversion ratio? We need to know how effective these proposals are. Do we have a sales representative, whether it's inside or outside, whose closing ratio, their conversion ratio is really low? Well, that guides us to understand how to help them. Are they not qualifying properly? You know, commercial, are they just throwing spaghetti against the wall? Are they not getting the decision maker involved regularly? What sort of follow-up are they doing? See, knowing these ratios help you understand where in the sales process this person needs help. All right. And proposals outstanding, obviously, or estimates outstanding. What is the dollar amount of those estimates? The inside sales reps, of course, they have to have a great follow-up system. This is an area of great opportunity for you. I see a lot of sales reps in the follow-up process calling and leaving voicemail messages. It says, hey, Mr. Jones, it's Duane. Just want to see if you made a decision. Then a day or two goes by. Hey, Mr. Jones, it's Duane again. Hey, did you discuss that with your partner? Are you ready to move forward? Hey, it's a week later. Hey, you haven't gotten back to me. I'm wondering what's going on. This is what I hear on a regular basis, and that is highly ineffective. So what do we follow? Well, how do we follow up? Well, I'm going to talk about that in a couple of minutes as well. Got to continue to deliver value. All right. So that's some suggestions on some of the metrics. Now, here's one thing I want to add to that before we get off of that. You don't want to fall into the inspection trap. This is very, very common. The inspection trap is where you're simply reviewing numbers with a salesperson. Hey, Tony, you're a little low here on these outbound calls. This program we have going on right now, the mosquito, flea, and tick, you're supposed to make 100 calls a week, and you're nowhere near that. Let's talk about what's getting in your way. Hey, Tony, you got a good number of commercial now. You got a lot of proposals out on the street. You got a lot of paper out there. This is really good. But the bottom line is your closing ratio is really low. Let's look into why. We track the metrics for the sole purpose of understanding the story that they tell. And this is really important that we always, always, always remember that. Because if a person's closing ratio is low, but their proposal delivery is high in commercial, that tells us you've got to look on the qualification part of the sales cycle. Are they getting the decision maker involved? How is their presentation? Let's sit down with them in a conference room and help them out, and let's role play. Tony, let's do it right now. I'm a buyer. Let's take one of your proposals and I want you to present it to me. We'll go ahead and try to close me. I want to help you. I want to see how you're going about this. That's why we track the numbers, and it's very, very common for a sales manager or an owner of a company to simply sit down and look at the numbers and say, well, this is going on, your delivery, the number of calls you're making, the number of calls you're fielding. I think you're taking yourself out of the queue. It appears as though you're spending a lot of time elsewhere. I've got a client that has a software package that can see if the websites that a rep is going on, if it's relevant to the industry. And they track productivity. They have a productivity number. How productive is each rep? Meaning, how often are they in the queue and how many calls are they fielding? Whatever metrics you are comfortable with that will tell you the story, put them in place. And you don't have to do all this stuff overnight, by the way. It's really impractical to do that. Just start little by little, but set a goal to create a process which gives you the insight that you need. All right, so now that we're tracking metrics, how do we coach? How do we counsel? You have to hold one-on-ones with people. I'm sure you're doing that. But with salespeople that are responsible for three things, they're responsible to increase market share. They're responsible to drive profitable revenue, which means they've got to be able to deliver value, which means they have to know how to cross-sell. Because some rep will just sell the cheapest package, another rep will sell it, will upsell to the second package. Good rep can do that. Another rep can add on, let's do the mosquito, flea and tick. Let's talk about, the other services that you have, maybe wildlife or other one-off services. The one-on-one is where the rubber hits the road. With a sales representative, so wait a minute, I didn't tell you the three things, right? I got to tell you the three things. The first thing is they got to grow market share. That means get more customers. That means have a good, healthy closing ratio. The second thing is they've got to grow profitable revenue. That's the cross-selling and make the deal size bigger. And the third thing is they've got to set the right expectations with buyers so that we reduce cancellations. And I just want to make this statement. This is what salespeople, when they sign up for selling, this is what they're signing up for. And I see a lot of companies, smaller pest control companies, that are not setting that
You feel
mandate.
it as a girl if you don't make a guy.
Did I do something wrong? There are a lot of small businesses in pest control and also in lawn care where leadership is allowing the reps to sell in a customer service fashion. The rep is very knowledgeable. The rep has a great telephone voice, listens well, understands how to use the software for pricing and shows people that they want to help. And that's wonderful, but that's customer service. And we need to build a culture in our business where the sales professionals are in fact professionals. They are professional growth experts. Some people call them sales athletes. The bottom line is this is a competition, right? Some rep is going to win a sale and some rep is going to lose a sale. And when it comes to commercial, by the way, just a show of hands, how many of you are in commercial? Doing commercial? Boom, 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 boom. Okay, fair amount. Okay, so this is relevant then. I just lost my train of thought. We're talking about understanding that they are in fact responsible for revenue generation. We don't want to apologize for that. This is what they signed up for, and they've got to be talented enough and skillful enough to be able to execute the sales process. All right, the one-on-ones are where it happens. When I was a director at Sprint, I had one branch at that time, and then I was given more. At that one time, I was functioning a little bit more as a sales manager before I took on 2 other branches. And it was in Hartford, Connecticut. It was with Sprint, and my boss was Joe Lucci down in New York City. And when I started the second month, he had me come into New York City and to have a one-on-one with me to see how I'm doing. And he asked me, how are your one-on-ones going? And I said, well, I've been here 2 months. I did one series of one-on-ones with the reps. I'll probably do one a month or maybe one a quarter. And he said, you got to do them every week. And I said, Joe, I got 10 reps. Well, actually, I've got 8. My head count is 10. And since you brought it up, Joe, can I have some quota relief? You're holding me accountable for 10 salespeople. How about, can you hold me accountable for 8? And then I'll go ahead and I'll hire up and I'll get 2 more reps. And he laughed. He goes, that's a joke, right? I said, no, I'm serious because I'm behind the 8 ball. He goes, this is the revenue you need to generate for that branch. If you've only got 2 reps, well, that's your problem. You got to go find 2 more reps. I can't give you quota relief on this. And he said, you got to do these one-on-ones every week. He said, that's where you're going to learn about the rep. That's where you're going to see how skillful they are. You're going to identify their attitude. You're going to find out what areas they need help in. I said, Joe, I got to be out in the field closing deals if I'm going to hit this number. He said, no, that's a mistake. I said, why? What are you talking about? He said, your job is not to sell. Yes, you got to help them. Yes, you have to. Yeah, every now and then there's a big deal. You need to go out there. But your job is to take these 10 people and train them all and hold them accountable for results. And that's how you're going to hit this number. With 10 people firing on all cylinders, not one guy running around like a chicken with his head cut off. The one-on-one, I said, okay. He told me to do it. This guy, Joe Lucci, taught me so much. I did exactly what he told me. And in a 16-month period, our sales team was the #1 team out of 16 on the East Coast. And that's all because of the help that Joe Lucci gave me, and the one-on-ones had a major impact in it. That's where you learn about each rep. What are their strengths? What are their weaknesses? You review their numbers, the calls they're making, the proposals that they have out there, their follow-up process. And in doing that, you understand where to help each rep. And now you're raising the tide for your entire organization. I can't emphasize that enough. And I know you're busy and it's going to be a challenge. They don't have to be an hour long, by the way. Here's the other thing with the one-on-ones. You have the same agenda every week. Same agenda. Why? Well, it helps you efficiently go through it, #1. #2, the rep goes into that meeting knowing exactly what's going to be discussed. And #3, because they know it's going to be discussed, you are now bringing their attention to what matters. And that's part of training them to be more professional and focused on the activities that will generate sales. Once you get it down, you can crank through that probably in 30 minutes, 40 minutes. Some one-on-ones, everything is just going smooth so well, you can do it in 10 minutes. But it keeps the rep engaged. They know you're helping and you're observing, and it's a fact. When an athlete, a performer of any kind, knows that there's people watching, their performance is always better. And we can get lots of evidence going back to COVID when there were no fans in the football stadium. You look at the numbers that were being posted during that time, touchdowns generated, sacks, all that stuff that matters. They were significantly lower because the players were out there. They weren't motivated by that audience. So there's the one-on-ones. I hope you're writing down some questions here, guys. All right. Here are some of the elements in the one-on-one. We want to take a look at the consultative selling. We're going to talk about that next. Their commitment to personal growth. We need to identify with each rep how committed they are to growing. This is really important. And one of the best ways to find out how committed a rep is, by the way, give them a book. Get a good book to read, give them a book, and then in a day later say, hey, what'd you think of chapter 1? Oh, I didn't really get around to reading it. Okay, all right. Give them another 3 days. Go and ask them, how's that chapter 1? Are you into chapter 2? Well, things got busy. I had to do this. I had to do that. That's a representative who's not committed to personal growth. But a representative that's all over it, they are going to read that book and they're going to get into it because you suggested it, #1. #2, you wouldn't have suggested it unless there was value in it. And they're hungry for growth and they want knowledge and they're a player and they're part of the team. It's just a great way to identify how committed somebody is. All right. The other thing that the one-on-ones are doing is it's creating a culture of accountability. And this is huge. The representatives need to know that they are responsible to increase market share, increase profitable sales, set the right expectations to reduce cancels. They need to know that's their job. And they need to know everything that you're going to work with them on focuses on generating that revenue. So that when they walk into the building every day, they know what the culture is. They know what's expected of them. And you should discuss your values. I have a client that has 15 fundamentals. Here's the card. They have a card. They put it on a card. And every week, an email goes out to the staff that says, this week we're focused on this fundamental. And in the one-on-ones, you're probably wondering, well, what are some of the fundamentals? Here's some. Do the right thing always. Be positive. Honor commitments. Be vigilant about safety. Get clear on expectations. Those are some of them. And in the one-on-ones, the manager will say, hey, Tony, this do the right thing this week. Give me an example of how this week so far you were in a situation where you had to make a decision to do the right thing. So every single week they assign one of their fundamentals and they talk about it. And this is how one of the elements of building a wonderful culture, because people are going to be your distinct competitive advantage. People are the wild card in a company. They're either going to support your mission and the growth. This is about growth. They're either going to support it or they're going to sabotage it. Their customer service and sales, they're customer-facing employees, and they need to be on, and they need to be having great conversations with people and creating a bond and a connection. We're going to talk more about that in a minute. And this culture is critical. I'm sure you probably have a great culture. The thing you want to ask yourself later when you have a moment, cup of coffee or glass of wine, whatever, when you're chilling, ask yourself, do I have a sales performance culture? Do I have a culture of accountability where reps know what's expected of them and they're striving to achieve that? What can I do to improve that? The ROI you will get on any energy you put into that will be significant. All right. So there you go. The other thing about having this process, sales management processes in place, it gives you the ability to scale your business. You know, that's the other thing I learned about being inside some large Fortune 500 companies. They have a process for everything. And sometimes it was annoying. You know, got to follow the process. But the bottom line is, when you're growing and you're adding employees, if they're all doing their own thing and going about selling in their own way, saying what their own thing and closing the way they want, and nobody is on the same sheet of music, it's going to be chaos. And it'll also be a governor on your throttle to prevent you from getting up to a certain level. You'll hit a ceiling and you'll just stay there without process. So make sure you put, energy into this and you work on the process. The other thing is, if you're thinking about selling your company someday, when you have process in place, it gives you a distinct advantage in selling your company. And I know that for a fact because I built a specialty graphics company. We did banners that were 100 feet by 100 feet for the Gap in New York City. We did NFL stadiums. I mean, massive banners. This machine we had would print 16 feet wide by 100 feet with no seams. And it was just a great company. I started it from scratch. I knew nothing about the industry, but I knew how to sell. And I ended up selling the company because I wanted to do what I do now. I mean, that was the acid test for me. To start that company, I was $900,000 in debt. The machine cost $750. We had to get 5,000 square foot of space because we're talking massive banners. We had to buy some sewing machines and a bunch of other stuff. I had a couple of employees, and my house was on the line. My bride, Julie, was a stay-at-home mom. I had 2 boys under the age of 10, and my accountant told me I lost my mind. He said, I really thought you were more intelligent than this to get in debt like this, because this is going to be a problem for you. And I said, I know how to sell. And I built the company. And when I accomplished that 9 years later, I said, I'm going to go teach other people that are interested in how to do that. And that's kind of what's brought me to this. I hired a consultant because I kept hearing a lot of privately held companies, when they go to sell, a lot of them can't get what it's worth, or they have a hard time selling it because there's no documented process. So this consultant helped me put together playbooks for production and sales so that I could attract the buyer, and that buyer could see, this is the process that's here. This is how it runs, and this is where the revenue comes from. And it was very helpful. And it in fact helped me sell the company for a profit that was appropriate. All right, now let's move on. Let's go to the consultative sales process. Hope you're taking notes. We're going to have good conversations. The definition of consultative selling is where a salesperson is acting like an advisor. And I believe that it's powerful for you to, as part of your culture, is to help your people understand they have a lot of valuable knowledge, and this is no joke. They've studied pest control. There's so much to understand. That's one of the things I love about the industry for a young person getting into it. You can have a wonderful career in pest control, understanding the materials and understanding the different pests and the seasonality of it. It's just so interesting if someone finds that interesting. And your people know so much, and the buyers know so little compared to them. I find a lot of reps don't understand that about themselves. They don't have that pride. They don't understand how valuable their knowledge is. I try to get them to act like an advisor, and some of them are a little bit insecure about that concept. This is part of your culture. Work with them, help them understand that people pay a lot of money for the knowledge that they have, and your company has invested in training them, and help them understand, man, you can help people. Take the position of an advisor. When they're being an advisor, they focus like a laser beam on the customer. They make it all about that customer. They create an experience where that customer feels unique and appreciated. And then they tailor the solution. The discovery part of the sales process is the most important. That's at the very beginning. That's where we're asking a lot of questions to uncover, well, when did this start? And where are the sightings? And as I said earlier, do you have children? Do you have pets? And a lot of times people go, wait a minute, wait, hold on, man. You don't understand. We're driving inbound traffic. You know, we don't want to extend these calls. In our busy season, we don't want to extend the duration of a call. We want to shorten it. I promise you, I've listened to 3,000 calls. I promise you that by loading the front end with great questions, it's actually going to speed up the call. Why? Because when we go to present, we're not going to do a feature dump. We're not just going to spew all the things that our company does and bore someone to death. We're going to focus exclusively on their compelling reason to buy, the pain that they're experiencing, why they picked up the phone in the first place. Something happened. Something happened, and they need help. And the focus is to ask enough questions to uncover that. And when a rep pushes back, they say, hey, man, I don't know. That's a lot of questions. Ooh, man. Remember this. What is the number one thing any human being wants to talk about? Themselves. That is a fact. That's undisputed. They want to tell us about their experiences, their travels, the food they eat, the sports games they've been to. They want to talk about themselves. So one of the best ways to become an advisor, to help a buyer have a wonderful experience, is to make it all about them and to ask them questions. Now, the questions obviously have to be relevant. They have to be intelligent questions that are relevant to their situation. And when we do that, it's refreshing to the buyer. Because here's another thing I know for sure. Buyers are begging for a pest control company to stand out and be different from the rest, right? You guys have a challenge in the issue of commoditization. If you think about it, you're a buyer, you don't know a lot about pest control, you go on the internet, you're doing some searches, you look at a website, what do you see? A mom and a dad on the front lawn with a boy and a girl and a dog. There's great photos. It's a family. And you go scroll down a little bit, and here are the services that are provided. There may be a good, a better, and best. They talk about maybe bed bug and normal everyday creepy crawlers, and maybe rodents and roaches and things like that. So you're a buyer and you're going to these different websites and you're largely seeing the same imagery. So you begin to get this feeling like, well, they're all the same. They all do the same stuff. Well, the services may be similar, but the experience isn't. And your sales reps it's helpful when they understand this. Every contact is an opportunity to create a connection, to create some credibility, to create some trust. And this is what happens when we're an advisor. So this is part of the culture. Let's make a shift from selling a commodity and just giving somebody a price, to get off the phone, to go ahead and take another call. Let's load the front with the great questions so the presentation is crisp. And then discussing their objections, we know exactly what's going on. It's actually going to shorten the sales cycle, and it'll increase the sales ratio. You know, in selling residential, we're going after the one call close, right? One call close. You spend a lot of money to drive that inbound call. We want to close that sale on that call, and that takes some skill in following a process. When we're talking about commercial, as I said earlier, that sale will be closed in the follow-up process. So as an advisor, when you do a magnificent discovery up front and you learn about their preferences and their experiences and their objectives, you learn about those. The sales rep makes fast note of this in commercial. also in residential, but I'm talking about commercial right now. And then in the follow-up process, these are the things that they reference. You know, Tony, you told me that when when we talked earlier, that in manufacturing, that you have had a rodent problem getting into the inventory. I want to send you a before and after picture of one of my clients, their inventory that's been nibbled away by these mice. And then I want to show you what it looked like 3-4 months later. Whatever pictures you can provide to show visual imagery, an article that can talk about your company or some trends in the pest control industry. This is the value that we use in the follow-up process to keep the buyer engaged, to continue building that credibility and that trust. It's extremely important because in commercial and also in residential, the most damaging thing, aside from a completely dry pipeline in commercial, rep is not prospecting, rep doesn't have a lot of opportunity. The next best dangerous thing is a weak follow-up process where they're unable to differentiate themselves. The reps need to learn how to engage in a conversation, a back and forth conversation with people, as opposed to just asking a few questions and then, doing that feature dump. They need to gauge interest by asking questions. Hey, Mr. Jones, how does that sound? Is that aligned with what you're looking for? The method that I'm recommending, does that, you feel comfortable with that? Tell me what you're thinking, Mr. Jones, about what I just said. These are questions that help us understand and gauge interest. And then when they do that presentation, they're focused exclusively on what is important to them and the pains and the issues that buyer is having, that the rep uncovered in discovery. So this is consultative selling. The main elements are, I'm going to make it all about the customer. I'm going to find out what their preferences are. I want to find out what's the real reason that they would buy pest control. I want to find out what have they done in the past and what was that experience like? And what are their expectations? So that now that rep can provide advice and refer back. Tony, about 2-3 minutes ago, you said that the communication with your current provider was just unacceptable to you. You had some issues with it. And you don't want to have that again. So now the rep can explain, this is how our company deals with communications. And now we're differentiating ourselves. We're avoiding being commoditized. And if we can't sell it right then and there, at least we're going to send that buyer away with a feeling like, man, that was a good conversation. That person really made it all about me. I feel good about that. Yeah, I'm going to go get another estimate, but I'm feeling good about them. And then they go talk to one of your competitors, and that competitor is selling that old-fashioned way, just doing a feature dump. What do you need? Yeah, we do that. Here's the program. Here's the price. You want to do it? No? Okay. I'll email it over to you. And then let me know if you have any other questions. I'm here for you. I'm here to help. Believe it or not, that is how the majority of reps are selling out there. All right, skill development. What skills do we have to develop? They've got to develop this call efficiency so they shorten the duration, because I know that's super important. And that's done through asking the great questions and everything, that I just outlined. They need to be able to discuss objections. Now, you notice I'm not saying they need to be able to handle objections, because really it's more of a discussion. I'll give you an example. If you're dealing in residential and the caller says, I have to talk it over with my spouse, the sales rep it's not as effective to go into it with the idea, I'm going to overcome this objection and I'm going to convince them they don't have to talk to their spouse. That's not effective. That's pushing someone away, but they do need to discuss it. So what would it sound like? So of course, anytime we hear any kind of an objection, we always start with empathy. Okay, Mrs. Jones, I appreciate that. That's if it's true. If the rep is in a relationship, the rep might say, that's how we do things in my relationship as well. This empathy calms the buyer down. It makes the buyer feel like you're listening and you're not going to push back and try to be manipulative. Empathy, it's always the first reaction. I can appreciate that. Then we have to find out a little bit about, what's going on. And here's just a great question that we ask in that instance. We say, Mrs. Jones, I appreciate the fact you want to talk with your spouse. Let me ask you something. I mean, just hypothetically, If you were going to make a decision right now, based on the program we discussed and based on the pricing, would you move forward with it? If we're going, if this buyer is going to go talk to their spouse, we have to find out, are they on board with it? Because if they are, that's great. We're going to now coach them to be our salesperson. If they say, well, I don't know, I'm not really that comfortable with it. Okay, that's great. Tell me, what about it are you not comfortable with? Is it the pricing? Is it the level of service? We're asking questions to understand. Well, I mean, since you asked, the price is a little bit high. Okay, well, thank you for letting me know that. My point is it's a conversation, it's a discussion. And this is part of professional selling. And your sales representatives need to study this and practice it and get comfortable with this. It's not pushing people away. In fact, it's pulling them forward. We want to guide people down the path. If we believe that our company is in fact who they need to do business with, which we damn well better, right? Your reps need to really feel that in their core. I'm working with the finest company, and I'm going to help these people have the pleasure of doing business with us. That's got to be the mindset. So we discuss it. If somebody says, hey, well, you know what? That's really great, Tony. I need to think it over. Okay, that's great. I can appreciate that. Let me ask you something, Mr. Jones. When you say you want to think it over, when it comes to the program, when it comes to the pricing, what can you share with me what it is about that you want to think over? We've got to find out, what is that person thinking? Because we got to follow up with this person. And they may say, well, you know, I'm a little concerned. The last company we did business with, we've got 2 dogs. They left the gate open twice, and our dogs were running around the neighborhood for the entire day. They could have got hit by a car. We told them about it, and they didn't do anything about it. So the communication was an issue and the attention to detail. And I'm just concerned that that's going to happen all over again. Now the rep understands what this person's concerned about. Now the rep can discuss it. I can appreciate that, you know, Mr. Jones. I can tell you that we're not 100% perfect, but boy, I'll tell you what, we have, our techs pay attention to details. Here's how we go about doing that. We talk about the notes that are in CRM and maybe the pre-call planning. And now we're building credibility and we're building trust. That's the goal in consultative selling. Because we know if somebody trusts us, they'll buy from us. See, that's part of your culture. Guys, we are going to learn how to speak with people and ask questions to build trust, because then they're going to buy from us. And again, if they don't buy right there on that call, they're going to leave with a very positive impression. And now we've created a wonderful experience. Role playing and skill development is absolutely key. You got to role play. You got to practice before performance. This is a performance game. These are sales growth professionals, just like an athlete, or a physician, or a surgeon, or a pilot. These people practice. This is how we build our skills. And that's part of your culture, to let them know, you know, hey guys, and you probably do some of this now, maybe you do a lot of it. If you don't, it's going to be, hey guys, here's a little change, you know, ease into it, and start the role playing with just you and them. Don't put them up in front of other people to start, because it makes people really, really uncomfortable. And give them the scenario of role playing before you do it. Say, listen, Tony, this is what we're going to role play. I'm going to be the buyer. You're going to obviously be the customer. I've had a bad experience before. I'm looking for a new provider. And I'm going to tell you that I need to think about it. You tell them in advance. We want to set them up for success. This is practice. You know, it's like a football team. They practice the plays. The coach tells them, here's the play, let's work it. The same thing applies here. Let's tell them what we're going to do. And we're supportive in the role play. We don't try to trip them up by being tricky. See, that's where a lot of role plays go south. We're not trying to be tricky or funny or goofy. Here's the plan, and we work with them and we help them. You'll see a magnificent improvement through role playing. All right. Now, the other thing that I wanted to talk about here is well, I already did the customer experience, building value. I think we're done with that. The skill development. I think we've talked about the one-on-one. We've talked about the elements. All right. You want to talk about recruiting? We're coming into the final stretch here, guys. I hope you're doing all right. Then we're gonna have a lot of questions. This part is the shortest. Okay. recruiting. You never know when top talent is going to come into your life. You never know. That's why recruiting, if you really want to crush it, recruiting has to be going on constantly. You may see a wonderful rep in a restaurant as a waiter or waitress. You may see a wonderful rep when you rent a car and you're traveling. They're just so smart and so energetic and customer focused. You'll be surprised where you can run into reps. You need to be on the radar, because here's the thing. I know this might sound a little bit harsh, but it's reality. You need turnover on your sales team. And what you'll find is when you have a sales representative who's being rather mediocre, I mean, they're doing okay. Calls are coming in, they give good pricing, and they can, handle the CRM, and they're doing an okay job. They're an order taker, but they're nice. You like them. And they've been with you for 5 years, 6 years. You've got to ask yourself, is this person helping us grow? Market share, profitable revenue, setting the right expectations. That's their job. If they're not, ideally, they should be moved to another position if you can, or moved out of the company, because you need to put somebody in that seat that's going to rock it. This is about driving revenue. This is about performance. We don't apologize for the job. This is what a salesperson signs up for. So, I'm not saying you just let people go for the heck of it. You've got to always ask yourself, can I do better? And that's what, remember Jack Welch, if you read his book, that's what he was all about. He would constantly every year remove the bottom 10%. You want to grow. You want to grow. That's what this is about. You don't grow by establishing or accepting status quo, right? Or mediocrity. You don't grow that way. And growth is essential. The other thing is when you're, how do I find them? Well, somebody's thinking that. Indeed, I've seen a company have great success. Sometimes there's a local diner near their office, and they have the placemats in the diner, and you can advertise there. They've had success with that. I've seen them advertised in hunting magazines, camping magazines, hiking magazines, sporting magazines, because oftentimes people that find pest control interesting are often enjoy the outdoors. I found that to be creative. Of course, you're asking and rewarding your internal employees to come up with referrals. I'm sure you have some kind of an award for that. And having that onboarding, a solid onboarding, where when they start, they get introduced to the right people. The processes begin to be explained. They're given a wonderful experience, and that helps shorten the ramp up, that great onboarding. It also helps you increase sales. All right, those are the fundamentals I wanted to go over with you. All right, now I'm going to wrap it up with a couple comments about some of the pushback that you're going to get, and then we're going to open it up for questions. I mentioned change. You're going to have reps just pushing back on the change. And you're going to have to be, gentle but firm. Go in small doses with it, and always try to explain, this is why we're doing this. Okay, this is the business reason, and this is how you personally and your family will benefit. And that's not BS. Those are facts, business facts. Help them understand that, and ask them, are you in? Are you looking to grow? And this is even if you have one rep, this is how you operate. You're going to have a challenge fitting in those one-on-ones. Some of you are thinking, I can't do a one-on-one. I got three reps. I can't do that every week. Well, you can. I know I was there. I had 10. I thought it was insurmountable. I mean, I was told I had to do it, condition of employment. And boy, am I glad that Joe said that to me. It's going to be somewhat of a challenge. It'll take some thought to get your observing performance and figuring out how are you going to track it. You want to keep it as simple as possible. You don't want to track anything that you're not going to use. Again, it's all about the story. One of the things that will erode morale is when you're tracking things and the rep sees you're not using them. It's not being discussed in a one-on-one. You're not illustrating how it helps or how it can be improved. And they start feeling like, well, why the heck am I tracking this stuff? Because reps don't want the admin. You'll hear, do you want me selling or do you want me doing admin? Well, we need to do both. You want to keep it simple and don't overdo it. Attracting sales talent is a challenge you'll face. Motivating people. Here's a book for you. I want you to write this down. This book is awesome. It's a short book. If you've ever heard of Vern Harnish, you know that he's a top thought leader. The name of the book is Scaling Up Compensation. Scaling Up Compensation with Vern Harnish and Sebastian Ross, Scaling Up Compensation. Fantastic book based on case studies. Info is so real. And one of the major things I've taken out of this book is create your own comp plan. Don't feel you got to copy somebody else. Ask yourself, what do I need to accomplish? What are my margins? How much can I pay? They also, in this book, talk about a company in the grocery store business. I believe it's in Germany. The owner started out small, struggling. He said, I'm going to pay my people more than the competition. And he was struggling because I'm going to get the best talent. True story. You can read about it. It's really great. And I'm going to have a rigorous interview process. We're going to really figure out if a person's got the talent. And I've got a very effective system for that. If that's something you need some help with, I use an online evaluation, which is highly predictive of sales success. I've been using it for 8 years. I wouldn't have used it for 4 months if it wasn't powerful. They also are tracking their performance in a positive way to help them grow. And he's just built a culture of performance, and they've grown. I think it said they're doing 3 times what Walmart does. I know it's 3 times Walmart, or I'm pretty sure it was Walmart. Anyway, don't be afraid to pay people. Adam and I had this conversation. Don't be afraid to have your sales rep making a lot of money as long as they're delivering profitable revenue and you're growing and they're happy. That's a home run. Growth for top producers, that could be a challenge. If you have a top producer that's doing extremely well, you got to get creative and figure out how to keep them engaged, right? And in the one-on-one, work to understand the rep's personality style. What motivates them? How interested are they in making money? How far will they go? Where, what will they not do? We don't want a rep that's conditional. Hey, hey, Morgan, I'll work hard for you. I'll work hard for you Monday through Friday, but I'm really not going to be working after 5. I don't really want to go to those trade shows, those home shows. I'll Monday through Friday, but the weekend, I'm not going to go to those shows. That's a conditional employee. And that's not really supportive. Board. Okay, last thing I'm going to make, I'm going to open it up here and we'll have 30 minutes. What you can see, what I have seen anyway, a company that embraces these processes, they can experience a 20 to 30% increase over what comes in anyway. So if they're growing at a rate of 10% just based on their current structure, you add this process on there, it's possible for you to grow another 10%, another 15%. So now you're growing at 20% when you put these processes in place. That's what I've seen. Okay, that's what I got for you. Let's open it up for questions.
So really quick, I just want to add on because of what you just said, Duane.
Yeah.
Not on sales, but on the service side. If you plan on doing this, the worst thing for your sales team, or a great way to demotivate them, is to at some point say you need to stop selling because you don't have enough technicians to service the work. So make sure you plan that out properly. We may have run into that once or twice in my own company. So just a quick side note. We did have
good point.
Dell asked, and I know you mentioned one, there's a lot of good sales books out there. Can you recommend 1 or 2? So besides the one you already said, do you have any other ones that you recommend?
Well, I wrote a pretty good book, so I would recommend you get that. I'm happy to send one to you. There's some classics, man. There are some absolute classics.
And just to be clear, it would be one that I would want the reps to read, not necessarily just me.
Okay. Yeah, you know what I'll do? I'll send you a list. I got a book, Questions That Sell. That's really powerful. Believe it or not, Dale Carnegie's old book, Make Friends That Influence People, talks about how to build relationships. The stuff is classic. I can send you some lists of a couple of other books. I'm happy to get that to you. I mean, because there's a number of them, and you helped Dell by saying, I want my rep to read it. So I think it should be something that's a little bit motivational as well as practical, right?
Yeah. That'd be great.
Yeah.
Thank you.
Yeah, yeah, no, happy to do that. Okay? Come on, guys, you got to have a lot of questions on this. You can push back, you can disagree, whatever. I mean, this is what's going to really make this a rich experience.
So Dwayne,
David?
if you want to
Yeah.
get that list to like us at New England Pest, then we can send it out to everyone that registered. So that way that can be sent to everyone.
Absolutely. I'll send it directly to you, Adam.
Perfect. And then
And I'll-
go ahead.
And I'll have a description of, the value that's in it.
Okay. Brett asked what your thoughts are on the Sandler process.
I think the Sandler process is excellent. David Sandler accomplished something that only Dale Carnegie was able to do, and that is to create a sales development franchise around the world. Very powerful. Now, having said that, it's a program which is very technique oriented. Techniques are important, but it's really, really very strong in that area. And many reps are not able to embrace it. For example, he's really big on the upfront contract. That's when the rep first meeting very early says, Mr. Jones, I'm going to put a lot of energy and effort into this. And what I ask of this is that you reward me by saying, when we meet, you're either going to say yes or you're either going to say no. You're not going to tell me you want to think about it. You got to talk it over with somebody else. You're going to tell me you either want it or you don't. And then when you don't, you're going to tell me why. That's a little bold. A lot of the other strategies that they have are very much like that. I wouldn't call it consultative, but can we learn from it? Absolutely. Is it worth reading the book? I have his book. You can't teach your kid to ride a bike in a conference or something. That was you read that, Lee? That was a helpful book. So yeah, yeah, can learn some good stuff from Sandler. Absolutely. All right, what else we got?
Do you have any strategies for cross-selling and upselling? We're actively doing that right now and have heard some mixed opinions on sending a blanket email or some type of follow-up, or is it better to text message in some cases?
Great question. The statistics do say, as you probably know this, that text messaging is getting the highest rate of response. It's a rate that they're very comfortable with it. Their phones are constantly in their hand. They're short and people like it. So that's effective. Here's what I have seen. Give me an example, Adam. What would be a good cross-sell? Mosquito, flea and tick, termite.
Yes. So you get general pests and you want to add on mosquito and tick.
All right, let's go with that. And I'm assuming that when you say cross-sell, we're on the same sheet of music. We're talking about they're already an existing client. We want to sell them mosquito, flea and tick. Okay.
Yes.
What I have seen over and over and over, when we send out a blanket email saying, hey, thanks a lot for being a customer. Wanted to see if you'd be interested in our mosquito, flea and tick. Or you pick up the phone and you do that. Highly ineffective. You'll get some people that'll say, yeah, but here's what I'm seeing to work much, much better. Picking up the phone, contacting someone, 2 questions right up front when we get them on the phone. And also be really good at leaving voicemails, because people do listen to voicemails. Many people tell you they don't, they do. If it's a good voicemail, they're going to listen to it. Mrs. Jones, it's Tony with ABC Pest. First of all, we get her on the phone. Mrs. Jones, we just want to thank you so much for your business. I'm looking at your record. You've been with us for over a year. You've been with us for 3 months. We want to thank you very, very much for your business. And the other thing is, I want to find out, is there anything we can do? Is there anything that we need to do for you that, we're not doing to the level that you want? Then it's very powerful when you attach the service to time of year. In this case, when are mosquitoes, flea and ticks breeding? When are we seeing them most prevalent? Is there something about that neighborhood? Do they back up to woods, pine trees? Is there standing water in that area? And this is where putting good notes in CRM comes into play. See, now we're being strategic. And you may be thinking, oh man, that's a lot of work. Well, that's what it takes to really stand out. So you call Mrs. Jones. I want to thank you so much for your business. We greatly appreciate it. And want to ask, is there anything else we can do for you? And I'm glad that you're happy. And the other thing is we're coming into mosquito, flea and tick season. And I see that you have a pet, you have a dog, or I see you have children. And there are ways to protect them so that they don't get bit. I mean, these insects do carry diseases. Would you like to hear about our mosquito, flea and tick program? Now, the reason that works is, number one, thanking them for we can't sell anybody anything until we find out, are you happy? Right? Does that make sense? I mean, think about how crazy that is. You thank them so much, brings them in. Thank you. Is there anything else we can do? Now they're feeling really good about it. You're linking the mosquito, flea, and tick to seasonality, which makes sense. It's justified. They've got children, they've got pets. Would you like to learn about how to protect your family versus you really should get this because you have kids? Does that help? This stuff takes a little bit of thought, but if you've got good records in CRM, you can really leverage that. We want to link it to a need that people have. I mean, one of the things that I hate, and it's in a commercial right now, is when you go to have your oil changed and the guy always comes out to tell you how dirty your filter is and you need another filter for $90. Have you experienced that? And you take the filter and you go, wait a minute, and you tap it on your hand and a few things fall out of it and the filter looks great. Now, don't try to sell me something if I don't need it. It erodes credibility and trust. All right, what else you got?
So we have, with a team of multiple sales reps, are you seeing that our industry is moving away from geographical based territories and keeping the entire market serviced by all the reps?
Yeah, I have to think about that for a minute. I think it's common to put them in territories. And of course, the benefit to that, are we talking residential or we're talking commercial now?
Specifically commercial.
Yeah, specifically commercial. Pest control we want to establish a presence in the community. We want to be known as the pest company that can be trusted. We want a lot of referrals in the community. We're going to home shows. We're part of associations. We're going to meetings. And I think that in that case, it makes sense to have a rep responsible for that geographic territory, providing that you're going to ensure that they go deep into the community so that the sale is not transactional. If you say to 4 reps, have at it, they probably won't go as deep into the communities as you would want. And pest control, we want people to know about us and have that warm and fuzzy, I trust these people with coming into my home and on my property. So I would recommend that they are in territories, but you have to monitor the activities, the networking and their activities and going deep into that territory. And then it's a home run.
Is that good, DJ? All right, so we get another one. Is it possible to hire a sales manager with the expectation that he or she will sell as well?
So this is the, excuse me, one second. This is the hybrid model. And it can be effective when a company is doing 1.72 in that area. You can't really afford to have a separate sales manager. You may only have 1 rep or 2 reps. So, the dynamics aren't really right to hire a full-time sales manager. I get that. By having the sales manager be a hybrid, managing and also selling, you are at least introducing formalized process and building a culture. It's going in the right direction. I like that part of it. What you'll find is that often the hybrid sales manager salesperson gravitates more toward the sales management side because they don't want to cold call, specifically if we're talking commercial. They don't want to cold call. They don't want to be out in the network. They want to do all that stuff. So they spend more of their time doing the sales management stuff. And that's not an effective use of their time. If you're going to go with the hybrid in that case, which it can work while you're growing, you have to be sure that you are holding a one-on-one with that sales manager to identify what coaching are you doing? How are you going about your coaching? What role play are you currently doing? Tell me what the structure is. You have to monitor and keep their eye on that ball so they don't lose their focus. The other thing is, if they're also selling, they better be doing a good job with selling because they're not going to have any credibility with any rep that they're managing, right? So you also have to stay on top of that. So if a person signs up to be a hybrid, you have to let them know the standards for this are pretty steep. You know, I want you to go into this with your eyes wide open, and it can be done. It can be done. All right. What else you got? This is
So
good. This is
piggybacking
good.
kind of on that, can you see a sales manager, should they be able to manage inside and outside, or do you think those are two different mindsets?
I think they can. The sales process is very different. There are elements, however, that are quite similar. We've got to be conversational. We want to be that advisor. We want to build credibility. We want to build trust. We want to ask great, intelligent questions to find out what's going on. When we present, and I see someone asked a question about feature dumping, we can talk about that. When they present, both players have to be very laser focused on what that buyer wants so that the connection is maintained. Got to make a connection today when there's so many options. Right? In the absence of building value, what is a buyer going to focus on to make a decision? What? Price. Right? If they don't see any value, and when I tell you they're begging for you, your rep and your company to stand out, I mean that. Because people don't like making a decision just based on price, because they've done that before. And it hasn't always worked out really well. Just because somebody's price is lower doesn't mean they're going to give you the service and the results you want. People know that. But if they can't see any difference in how the rep spoke with them and discussed what they want and how they presented, if they don't see any difference, all they can wrap their arms around is price. So, yes, a sales manager can do both, but they've really got to be understanding the difference between the two. And although there is similarity in the process, there is significant differences as well. And again, you are going to have to do a one-on-one with that person every week to make sure that they understand the difference between the sales process. Commercial can take 8-9 months, right? Contracts expire. They're working on that 30 days before it expires. Inside, taking inbound calls, dramatically different. And end of this answer, yes, they can. They have to understand the difference, and you're going to have to monitor them. All right, what else?
All right, so you can't manage what you cannot measure. What do other people use when your workers are remote and you have disparate softwares, daily KPIs, weekly, monthly dashboards? I have two very competitive service advisors that I'd love to measure their own progress. Do you have any suggestions?
Are these 1099s?
Jeannie, if you want to come on and talk specifically about it, that might help.
All right.
Yeah, that would help.
We have multiple softwares. I hate to say it out loud, but we use PestPack, which isn't the most current software in the world, in terms of, being in the digital age. And its ability to connect or have an API with other systems is nil. So we have your phone system, then you have your shared inbox. So you have the round robining, and then you have PestPack, and all of them are all over the place. And you're really trying to give your salespeople, especially your remote salespeople, indications on a daily basis of how well you're doing without CSAT, without measurement tools other than them listening to their own calls. Sure, we can measure the leads and the closings, and that's great, but it's so one-dimensional. I'd love to have. Go ahead.
Are you talking both residential and commercial now, or just residential?
Well, they do help onboard commercial in the respect they take the initial information and prepare it for the outside salesperson. So that's about it in that respect. Primarily residential, yes.
Do you have any plans on upgrading the software to get everybody on the same platform? Is that in the works?
That's hilarious. Um, we have, everyone uses PestPack, and we're not leaving PestPack and
Okay.
so no.
Okay. All right. So first of all, I think that you're very, very aware of how important monitoring certain KPIs is. You've bought into that. You get that.
25
Right.
years in sales, yes.
Okay. You get that. You really do have a challenge, I don't need to tell you that, to get everybody, on the same sheet of music. So, start with a few of these activities, leading activities that are most important to you. And see if you can get them into PestPack. I mean, walk before you run. Just pick a couple that are super important for you to understand and illustrate to the rep, you're doing great here, not so great here. Let's talk about what's getting in your way. If you need to do it on an Excel spreadsheet, as archaic as that sounds, this stuff is important enough to do that.
Yeah. Do you use a dashboard of any kind where you can gather daily reports from disparate softwares and populate that so it's at least centralized?
There's all kinds of software. I just spoke at a conference and had a meeting with a gentleman who is a HubSpot specialist. And man, the ability for that to hook up to other softwares and provide a variety of dashboards, whatever you want, it's truly magnificent. I think he told me it's $100 a seat per month. And there'll be a certain amount of programming that needs to go into it. And if you've got somebody on your staff that's pretty technically comfortable, they probably can do it because a lot of it is, pretty straightforward. But HubSpot is one of them.
Appreciate that.
Yeah. But don't be afraid to go on a spreadsheet if you have to. This information is too important. It directly affects productivity and your revenues. And putting a couple of simple spreadsheets together, is not, as you very well know, is not that difficult, but it'll give you the info that you need.
Wait,
So
can
All
I
right.
just jump in for one
Sorry.
second? I just want to speak to this on what we've done personally.
Oh, good.
I did send you a message, but we have a sales tracker dashboard that we use where we data dump every single day. And then our systems and data director has built it out. So in Microsoft, we have different dashboards for sales, for operations, all of that. So if anyone on this call wants to have a conversation offline, I would be happy to show you what we have done on our side. It's a little bit sophisticated, but it is not out of the realm of possibility. We started really basic several years ago, and it's been a really consistent way to keep track of our data. And we include all of our sales goals in there too. So the reps have access to it so they can see where they are in a monthly, quarterly, and yearly trajectory.
Yeah, I feel like that's super important.
That's awesome.
Visual recommendation, yeah.
Wow, that's great, Courtney. There you go, Jeannie. She can
Thank
help you
you.
get rocking on that pretty
Go,
quick,
Courtney.
probably.
All right, let's move on to the next one.
Yep.
So, Duane, you kind of saw this, but how can we find a good balance between feature dumping and setting expectations?
Feature dumping is highly ineffective. It is as common as table salt because what a rep does, they learn your programs, the materials that are used, the frequency of the programs. They get very, very comfortable with it. They get really comfortable with it. And the natural thing for them to do is when they hear, I've got creepy crawlers, general pests in the house, the natural thing for them to do is to jump right to selling. We have a program for that. And let me tell you how many years we've been in business and how many reps we have, and they're all certified and they're licensed. Here's what the program does. We start with perimeter outside. The fee for that is a 187 one time, inside rather. We start with inside. 187, we evaluate it, we determine if anything else is to be done, then we go to outside perimeter. Do you want to do it? That's a feature dump. The problem is that
that's exactly how the sales team sounds right now. Like they just
Yeah.
kind of list everything, but we do have like a few things that always need to be included in a call, like things like our customers always get very confused by our payment structure. They pay monthly, but they get services quarterly. It always comes up. So it needs to be in there, but I'm just wondering, how do you do a conversation like that without it just being, rote?
Yep. No, it's a great question. And yes, you have things that have to be in there, and that's fine. It's how they're delivered. It all starts with that discovery. I want to learn, if I'm the rep, Morgan, I want to learn a little bit about what has your experience been? Tell me about the sightings you're having. How frequent are they? I mean, how bad are they? Do we have an infestation here? Or do we just have a couple of bugs that got in the house? What's the degree? How often? How bad is it? When the rep is really highly effective, they'll say, Morgan, it sounds like you've tried to fix this, it hasn't worked, and you sound kind of frustrated with it. Is this something that you want to get done immediately? It's got to be about that buyer. We got to find a little bit about their family, a little bit about their past experience. This is not a long conversation. It's just conversational. And if someone calls, something happened, their children are upset. Their spouse has tried to fix it. It doesn't work. They come to that realization. Something has happened. The rep has to just talk with them. Tell me a little bit about what's going on, Mrs. Jones. When they uncover that, then when they're describing the service, they're referencing the information they got. Mrs. Jones, you said that this has been going on for a while. In that case, there may be an infestation that, that you really do need to take care of. They're linking it as opposed to just doing a dump. Here's how many years in business, how many trucks, how many certifications. They're linking what they're saying to what the buyer said they want, their experience, and their needs. And when this is role played and it's practiced, and you make a commitment to making this happen, they will get it. And it's refreshing to them. And the buyers are feeling comfortable. And then if you've got to talk about your billing near the end, when that buyer is fully on board, Mrs. Jones, I want to go ahead and get this moving forward for you. I do want to tell you about our billing. I want to make sure that that's crystal clear to you. And they put it in at that point, not up front, because it's a feature. Features cause a buyer to focus on price. Questions get a buyer focused on value, because they're explaining themselves and what they want and what's important to them. Features equal price. Questions equal value. Does that help, Morgan?
Yes, thank
right.
you.
You're very welcome. It's a great question.
All right, so Duane, I'm going to kind of wrap the next two questions into one because you might be able to hit on them together.
Look at you.
But all right, so because we got about 5 minutes, so we got to try and move through it. In your professional experience, do you see more success when a sales team member leads with the premier package? Because you can't put toothpaste back in the tube, so shoot high and you can always come down, or offer a good, better, and best program option? And then the second part of that is, what are some KPIs that you think should be managed for a sales team?
All right, so let's talk with the premium. What I'm observing in terms of buying behavior in 2024, this has been going on for a while. People want it linked to what it is they want. They don't want a sales rep suggesting stuff that is not germane or relevant to what it is they want. When that happens, they get angry, they disconnect, it erodes credibility. What I found to be most effective is they ask a lot of questions about the property, the size of the home, the family, the traffic. Is it a vacation home? Is this your where you live? They learn about it. Have you ever tested for termite? They're having this conversation, and if they get a sense that they're dealing with a larger property in an affluent neighborhood, the chances of that family having a fairly high income is there. The chances of them wanting to protect their family, the chances of them wanting to protect their property value, these elements are probably there within that person's mind and what it is they want. So if we can uncover a need for perhaps termite, a need to protect the mosquito, flea and tick, and we can explain it in a way that aligns with them and their lifestyle and their property, then we can go for the premium package. But to be talking with someone where clearly they're in a different neighborhood, they're not in a high-end neighborhood. In our conversation, we sense they just need to get this done. We sense they just want a Band-Aid on this thing. To go for that premium is probably a strategic error. It comes down to the rep having a conversation and truly understanding this person. It's always going to go back to that. I promise you that. The discovery is where the magic is because it feeds everything else. Presenting, handling objections, closing, follow-up. And people think, oh man, asking all those questions, it's going to lengthen the call. No, it's not. It's going to shorten the call. It's going to lengthen the discovery, but it's going to shorten the presentation and the handling objections and the closing because you got the information about this person, which is relevant to them, and that's what they want. All right, the other question is what KPI?
Yeah, is there any specific KPIs you think should be managed? Like at a bare minimum?
Yeah, you want to know activity. So if you need this person doing a lot of outbound to sell add-ons, you want to track the activity on that outbound. If part of their job is to be following up on unsold estimates and connecting in a good way and using texting and using email and using voicemail because they've got a lot that's out there, then you want to track how's that activity going. The activity that will generate sales, you want to ask yourself, in your company, what is the activity that generates the sales revenue that you want and that you need? What are the leading activities? Those are the things you want to track.
All right. Lee, I don't think we're gonna have time to get to your last one. Sorry.
That's okay.
All right. So I really just want to thank Duane for today. I think it went great. I hope everyone was able to at least take some information out of this. There'll be a follow-up email that comes out just with his recommendations on the books, his contact information. Same thing with Courtney. If anyone has any questions on our spreadsheets or what we do with that, we'll be more than happy to help there. And we're also going to try and send out a survey just on how it went, what you might be looking for in the future. I want to thank everyone again for coming. I'm going to make the push for New England Pest. If you are not involved on a regular basis with New England Pest Management, I recommend that you try and do that. We have our annual dinner coming up at the beginning of December. Right here, it is December 12th. I'm sorry, not December 12th, December 4th. And then our next business series is December 12th at 11 o'clock. That's on National Pest Management and New England Pest Management, how being involved and what benefits they can offer to help you grow and stabilize your business. So again, I want to thank Duane for everything he did. Thank you all for joining us today. If you have any questions, you can always reach out to me, but look forward to that email coming out. So thank you all again and have a good rest of your day.
Thank you, everyone.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Bye.